welcome to the afternoon session of AMA Junior Camp today on Monday, July 6, 2020. It is 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and you are joining us live with my friend, Mason Hutchison.
Hello,
Hi,
everybody.
Mason.
Hey, Mason, how's it going, brother?
Hi, Claire. Hi, Kyle. It's going great today. Thank you for having me on.
We're so glad you decided to join us for AMA Junior Camp. You have such a cool background, and I'm sure all of our campers are going to have such a great time asking you questions and hearing more about you. So the first thing I want to know is, where do you work? What do you do, Mason?
Oh, that's the best part of everything. I have the privilege of working for Stratolaunch, LLC, and that is the home of the world's largest airplane, the Stratolaunch aircraft. And that's my history. I've been part of the build and design of that airplane for going on 7 years almost. And if you're curious, look up Google Stratolaunch first flight, and you'll see last April, April before last, that is, we flew the world's largest airplane, and we're going to be flying it again in the future.
Oh my gosh.
It's very exciting. 385 span. It's really an intimidating airplane to be near.
And it has a double fuselage, right?
And it has a twin fuselage design so that we can haul payloads right in the middle, and that is what makes it unique. Yes.
Wow, that is fantastic.
So are you going to be flying that soon? Is that a little teaser? Like, when is that going to happen? It's a teaser,
yeah. Well, not soon, but, in aviation terms, soon just means sometime in the future.
I think that's a general science term. There it is. Oh my gosh, look at that thing.
That was our first rollout, and that's the airplane coming out of its hangar for the first time. Look how big that is.
I mean, everybody looks like, I don't know, ants.
Yeah, tiny little ants. The distance between the fuselage is about 90 feet, and that is enough for us to hold whole company meetings in between the airplane, and we often do that. We will put the entire company in the hangar and hold our meetings just in the hangar.
Okay, so you're saying that the hangar is perfect for social distancing right now.
It is perfect for that.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. And where is Stratolaunch located, Mason?
Stratolaunch is in Mojave, California, about 80 miles north of Los Angeles.
Sounds hot.
And Mojave is kind of the center of experimental aircraft testing. So we're home to Scaled Composites, and they're the original builders of the Stratolaunch aircraft, and many other experimental companies. Virgin Galactic, the spaceship company is in town. So we're kind of in a community of experimental aviation, and it's just a wonderful place to be for expanding a career based on aviation. And that's what I've done is this area, and this type of work was my ultimate dream, and I'm sitting here enjoying that.
That's so awesome, Mason. So we have a couple questions for you that I prepared. We're going to wait for the questions to roll in from the campers, but the first thing I wanted to ask you today actually was, when was the first time you were exposed to aeromodeling or model aviation? And tell us a little bit about that. Like, what about it inspired you?
Oh, that's a great question. I've thought about that question quite a bit. I was first exposed to model aviation from my friends, just like most people are. I had a buddy who was into model aviation, and I was about 8 years old, and I grew up in a family that really did promote learning new things. My parents and my sister, all of us, we enjoy learning something new all the time, even back then. And I begged my dad to go down to a model airplane club meeting. As far as I knew, that's all it was just the people who flew model airplanes getting together and meeting in some warehouse downtown. I grew up in Hobbs, New Mexico, actually. And there's a fair amount of soaring in that area, but there was only one entity that did model aviation, and that's how I got my dad convinced to buy the first kit. Was taking him to that meeting, and there was a few of his friends in that meeting as well. So that sort of hooked us. And the very first thing we did was order a Sky Tiger kit, Carl Goldberg Sky Tiger from Tower Hobbies, and I took the magazine, the Tower Hobbies magazine, to school, and it got taken away by the teacher because it was too distracting to the classroom. I was so excited about it. And since I've been an avid modeler since, and now my own family, I have my own 2 kids. They both enjoy going to the flying field with me. My son flies himself, and we're very much into it. And one of our family, the joys of our family, of our vacation year is has traditionally been going to the AMA Expo, and so the AMA bringing all that together has been really exciting for us.
That's really cool. And I see your sister's jumping online and saying hello,
gosh.
Casey.
There's my sister, Casey.
I got to give a shout out to the sister.
Hi, Casey.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing about family legacy. Yeah.
It is big in our family. Family legacy of aviation is something that we've enjoyed a lot.
It's all
Looks like we may have lost Claire there a little bit.
Looks like we may have lost Claire.
I'm sure she'll be back.
I'm back.
There
I'm
she
back.
is.
Can you see me?
Yep.
There I am. Oh my goodness. So what I was trying to say is that I love hearing stories about families getting together and engaging with aero modeling, and that was kind of what Camp AMA was all about to begin with. Virtual experience, because we're really encouraging parents to participate like you had when you were in, and I think that's just fantastic. So my next question for you, actually, it's funny that you mentioned the first kit that you bought, because I wanted to know. I was curious if you remember the first kit that you purchased, and you did. So that's really awesome.
I do.
So what I want to know next is how do you incorporate?
I'm afraid I missed that question.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I think we're having connection issues.
I think we are. Yep.
So out of curiosity,
Oh my
Mason,
gosh.
how long
Okay.
did it take you to
We're having
knock out?
connection issues here.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. How long did it take you to knock out that first kit with you and your father putting that together for the first time? And how much involvement did you have from the rest of the group there?
Well, we had quite a bit of involvement because my dad and I went into it together, not knowing anything how to get going in the kit, and my entire family is very artistic and meticulous. My mom and my sister and everybody, we all had our ideas of how to pursue this kit, but really it was the help from the club members that showed us how to build that was the most fulfilling, really, because it forced us to interact with new people and learn new things, and we've made lifelong friends from doing it. And now, of course, when you make those connections, you can just springboard from one connection to the next and enjoy just a richer and richer experience in it all. The Carl Goldberg Sky Tiger back in the day was a die-cut wood kit that you glue together, and it's kind of hard to find those now in some ways, but it's been traditionally a pursuit. You commit several months to first building your airplane, and then you're going to go fly it. And I learned how to fly model aviation where I first committed several months into each airplane, then went to go fly. Nowadays, there's instant gratification in that there's ARFs and there's pre-built airplanes. They help you get that timeline shrunken faster, and you can build your airplane in a matter of hours now as opposed to months. And that has really helped make the experience more enjoyable for those of us who like to fly as much as we like to build. I'm both. I like to build and fly, so I have a mix of ARFs and airplanes that I've built by kit. They're about half and half because I have a place in my heart for both.
Yeah, I'm looking at your background there. I'm kind of seeing a little bit of both. And I mean, that's kind of the fun part of it for me too, is that, I can spend, a winter building some things, and, I've got some stuff on the workbench now with the boys. But, I've had a few instances where my kids will reach out to me, and say, hey Dad, this is fun and all. I like learning how to do this, but I just want to go fly. And, I try to do a good job of balancing the, no, we're going to work on building today with the, you know what, that's fine. Let's go fly today. And pulling out a foamy or something and having a good time.
That's right. Yep. And one of the hard lessons that I had to learn from that experience was the idea that it doesn't matter how much time you commit, you run the risk of crashing the airplane or the helicopter or the drone, whatever it is you've built. You run the risk of crashing that, and learning about the potential that I could come home without this airplane really taught me a lot of taught me a lot of lessons about aviation in general, stuff that I use in my job today. Actually, aviation is about how much risk you're willing to take and how much effort you put into keeping those risks at bay. And model aviation set that foundation for me. And now in a day-to-day type application, I can make decisions on aviation that are just natural. They come natural to me. Should I fly today or not? Is it too windy or is it not? And now that I've been flying since I was 8 years old, model aviation, I've been flying full-scale airplanes since I was about 16. And started flying gliders and hobs with friends of mine in high school, and a real good friend of mine who, you always want to be with people when you do this sport. You keep each other in check. So those steps that I took in aviation were all informed by learning what risk is in model aviation and what I'm willing to lay on the line to go fly. It's been an interesting journey for sure, and one that I love to continue every day.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, when you invest your time and your energy and your labor into, building an aircraft rather than just buying it off the shelf and flying it, like you do have that risk of like, I don't really want to crash this. I put so much time into it. But when it happens, because we all crash sometimes, you at least have an intimate knowledge of how to fix that, of how to repair it, how to bring it back and make it stronger, make it better even. After a few crashes sometimes. So that's
true.
Cool.
And I think that is where the value of ARFs and these quick build airplanes and drones and helicopters actually do provide value, is that repair scenario and the ability to make judgments. I love to modify airplanes. So if I get a new airplane that's an ARF or something like that, for instance, this Radian behind me has 2,000 LEDs. Fireworks are banned in California this year. So I flew a night Radian during the fireworks show, what would have been the fireworks show in our town, because, that's very much worth it. It took me hours to put all those 2,000 LEDs on that airplane.
I'd say it's probably just as bright as the fireworks, honestly.
It was. The problem is flying with your phone buzzing in your pocket. I live in a small town, so everybody knew that was me. And I got probably 25 texts during that flight. And you just got to get used to the phone buzzing the whole time. I didn't plan on that. I didn't see that coming, actually.
It can be distracting. Yeah.
That's true.
Claire, are you back? Can you hear us, Claire?
I'm back. I had to change my filming location, but I'm back in action. We actually have a question for you, Mason, from our very own AMA. I wonder if we could pull that up. It's a couple minutes back. There it is. Mason, what are those stickers we see behind you on the door? I think I see something familiar.
That's right. I am a big collector of AMA annual stickers. And this is my collection of the ones I kept since I was 8 years old until now. And there are a few missing because there's a few irresponsible years in there between 8 years old and 43 years old. As you can tell, quite a few missing. But I'm very proud of my AMA decal collection. And actually the secret to the AMA decals, let me show you, is... don't stick them on your door. Put them on a magnet.
That's perfect. Yeah. I was going to say, you're stuck with that door forever, but no, he's not.
That's
you can
right.
put them anywhere you want.
Yeah. Yep. So now I can rearrange them. And the best thing about that is from year to year, they all shuffle down. And
come right back down.
The ones on the top. And it is my personal goal to come to the...
That's awesome. I was wondering.
Yeah.
It looks like you were running out of room.
It is. Well, it's my goal to come to the AMA Museum and see if I can locate the other decals that I'm missing and see what they look like and take pictures of them. It's just a collection thing.
You know what? I think I can arrange that for you. I have some connections.
Good.
I was going to say, we'll get with you when you come in. We'll make sure that we can hopefully pad
All
out
right,
the rest of
Mason.
your collection. We'll see.
That's great.
And give you any of the stickers you were missing, but we could definitely share them with you and show you. Maybe you can grab photos and nice reproduction.
I would love to do that.
Well, I'm sorry I missed a little bit of the conversation for you, Mason. If you don't mind.
Yeah,
The question I was trying to ask earlier when I lost it and had to completely move out, I actually wanted to ask you how you incorporate. Oh, actually, we have a viewer question. I would love to know your answer. This is a question here from Stratolaunch Player, and he asks, let's see, hey Mason, what is your favorite plane that you have? And someone else, Tyler, he asked, how many airplanes do you have, Mason?
That's a great question. Both of those are good questions. What's my favorite airplane and how many do I have? It's very hard to name a favorite airplane for me because I do this thing with models that I try to cover all weather conditions. So I have airplanes that I have reserved for night flying. I have airplanes that are heavy that I reserve for windy day flying. I have airplanes that are for slope soaring and kind of everything. I like to go all over the place. Lately, I've been getting into gassers, and I love giant scale airplanes. And so lately, my favorite airplane is the Timber, and it's all the lines of Timber. So far, I've got every Timber model that's ever been made, including the 110 behind me, and I'm super into the Timbers right now. I think they are some of the best non-scale airplanes. I love bush planes, so there you are. And also, I'm super thrilled about Reno adopting the new Stoll races, and so I'm kind of into full-scale flying and this to mix together. So when I get attracted to something in full scale, I always build a model and go fly it in models in subscale first. And that's been my habit forever. And so I got into aerobatics for a while. So I've got a couple of aerobatic airplanes, and then now I'm into bush flying. And so that's the flavor of the day.
Yeah. That's really cool. I've been watching Mike Matei build his Scrappy as he's been working on it. That's been really fun to watch too. And you know, R.I.P. Draco. But
yes,
you know, taking those things and converting them into small scale model aviation, that's really cool.
I'm such a fan of Mike. I've got to meet him a couple of times. We saw Draco come to Mojave the day of first flight of Stratolaunch, so he was there for the first flight.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and at least
he seems like such a nice guy. I've never met him personally. I think I shook his hand at Osh last year, but just a really awesome dude.
Love his build techniques in his channel. I am just such a fan. But to answer the question of how many airplanes I have, the only way I can keep up with that is the modern day radios will count for you as you add airplanes in. And I crossed the 50 mark. Don't tell my wife, but I crossed the 50 mark, and some of them.
These are being recorded, right, Mason?
Oh,
and your sister is here.
We don't count. It's okay.
Yeah, it's some of them crash and I forget to take them out, so it's kind of a semi-accurate number. But I know I've crashed more than I've got flying right now. My whole thing is I'll crash them and I come home and fix them right away. So I try not to have a crashed airplane sitting around, and that way, if my friends call, "Hey, we're going to the flying field in a half an hour," I'm ready. So that's usually how it works.
Joseph jumped in and asked the question, what is bush flying, as in bush plane? I'll let Mason take that one.
Oh, that's a kind of a big answer, I suppose. I guess it's a style of flying. It sort of is historically handed down from that of like the northern areas of the country, like of North America, like Alaska and Canada, and those areas. They fly small airplanes with the ability to land on off runway, like dirt or grass or grass strips or anywhere off runway. So it's really just flying and landing on places that and taking off from places that are sort of out, in the backwood country or things like that. So one of the things I love about it is I'm an engineer, and my passion is sort of in the landing gear genre. I tend to have a really close interest for that, and so I really love the Bush tires, which are the big, puffy, soft tires. Yeah, I love those, and the high travel landing gear, and the ability to land out off of a runway somewhere and access more of the world than you could with any other vehicle. Truly, it is the most all-terrain vehicle there is. Some of them run on water, skim the water before they'll land on the beach. So, I mean, it's nearly amphibious and definitely capable of going anywhere. So that's how I would describe bush flying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yep. And it's something that is it's addictive, I think, because there's no single technique would apply to all scenarios, and you've got to be a good judge of the scenario, the situation you're in flying. So yeah, it's a good sport.
I saw that Elaine had posted the question. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, there it is. On the Stratolaunch, why did you not put engines in the middle part where the wings connect?
Oh, that's an interesting question. That is the area for the payloads. So we didn't want anything interfering with what we could hang, possibly, mount to the bottom of the wing. And so, yeah, that big open space there is specifically for taking up payloads like rockets or other aircraft or anything like test sensors or simply just a load that is flown from one place to another. So that's really what that space is made for, is for carrying of externally mounted things.
And Susan's very excited to ask the question what the red and blue plane is behind you, which I'm guessing it's the one hanging up. It looks like maybe a 3D or something.
Or this one here?
That one. That's what I'm guessing she's looking at.
This one is the Precision Aerobatics. That is the Addiction X.
Okay, there we go.
At the time that came out, it was the lightest wing loading ARF you could buy, and that's I had to have that. It's in Real Flight Simulator too, so that was a have to have. That was an Expo find.
Love Expo, love it. So you said wing loading. Let's explain what wing loading is to the kids.
Okay, yeah, wing loading is a very important metric we need to understand about airplanes. What it is it's the amount of wing area for the weight of the airplane. So if your airplane has 100 square inches and your plane weighs 10 pounds, what is that? That's going to be 10 pounds divided by 100, so 1/10 of a pound per square inch, something like that. If I did the math right there, probably not a good example, but yeah. So
I'm not going to double check your math, Mason. That is not happening.
Right. My on the fly math. So what it is, it's the weight of the airplane, the area of the wing divided by the weight of the airplane. So the weight of the airplane divided by the square inches of the wing. So it's pounds per square inch. And so you want I don't know, different airplanes fly differently at different wing loading. So imagine the Concorde. It's a supersonic transport airliner. It's going to have high wing loading because it goes so fast. It's going to have a lot of pounds per square feet resting on those wings. But if you look at, say, a sailplane, they're very light aircraft with very large wings and a lot of wing area. They're going to be very lightly loaded, and they'll fly slower and through a different region of the speed between slow and not so fast. Whereas an airliner, when it's highly wing loaded, it'll go very fast. And so typically it tracks. If you've got an airplane that goes fast, you're probably a higher wing loaded airplane. And if you're, a slow airplane that can fly low air speeds, that's very lightly wing loaded. So like your Cessnas and your Cubs, very light wing loading. But your RVs and some of your, say, pattern planes, a little bit heavier wing loaded. And race planes, very heavy wing loading. You want those to go fast. Mm-hmm.
Good deal.
And I'll mention too that goes along with sort of the span. So there's a relationship between the span and the width of the wing. So that shape combine or the relationship of how much wingspan versus how wide and how much the airplane weighs is a very careful relationship. And that's why you see so many different airplane designs in the world. And that's really what they're doing, is they're trying to corner the different speed envelopes and the different weight carrying capabilities and specifying the mission of each aircraft.
That's really cool. Yeah, because every aircraft is different. You know, as you mentioned, sailplane versus some kind of pattern plane or an aerobatic aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's carrying a payload, like Stratolaunch, it's going to have a very different mission. And engineers work really hard to get those parameters correct for whatever that application is.
So let's talk about that for just a minute. This is what I do for a living, and this is really what model aviation taught me. And what that is considering what the mission is first. So for the case of a twin fuselage design, for example, we needed to carry a very heavy payload, probably heavy in terms of compared to what the airplane carrying it weighs. So if you think, like, imagine you're on an airliner, there's all those people on an airliner. Do they weigh more or do they weigh less than the airplane itself? Well, typically the passenger load will weigh less than the airplane because fuel weighs a lot and engines weigh a lot and landing gear weigh a lot too. But that fraction of weight of payload versus airplane really does drive the design. So in the case of a twin fuselage aircraft, you will want to have the fuselage spread in two and make room for the payload right in the middle of the aircraft, specifically for carrying more fraction of weight. So some airplanes can carry more than half their own weight in payload. And when that's the case, you really need that load centered on the center line. So the twin fuselage idea lends itself to that, because not only does it let the payload be right on the center line and perfectly balanced on the wings, it also gives it plenty of room. The wing is way up in the air, so you've got lots of space above the ground. You don't have to have really tall, ridiculous landing gear, because now the fuselages get to be closer to the ground. So that really does become a mission-driven design. The twin fuselage is not aerodynamically efficient. There's a lot of drag involved with a twin fuselage design, but its mission is not to fly efficiently. It's to lift a heavy payload to an altitude. Mission is not necessarily to fly a long distance compared to some aircraft. It's purely to haul a payload to a higher altitude and orbit and launch from there. So that's really the advantage of a twin fuselage design, and partly the reason why you're just now seeing the emergence of twin fuselage designs in commercial use. Historically, they've been difficult to build, and now there's been those who have been bold enough to do that, and they're starting to see the benefit of that mission-driven design.
That's awesome, Mason. Can you guys see and hear me now?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Looks like we're back online. Mason, we have this great question from Darren Hudson. He left it on Facebook. I'm trying to scroll up through the comments because I'm trying to catch up now. Here we go. Oh, where'd it go? There it is. Have you flown any turbine models?
Yes, I have flown turbines, only a handful of times. They are an experience. So if you ever get the chance to fly a turbine model, take it. It is one of the best things. Yeah. My first turbine I ever got to fly belonged to my friend Red Jensen, who works at NASA, and you'll get to see him later in the week probably. Red Jensen and I have been friends a good while, and he said that he had this turbine model and he was going to let me fly it, and that automatically just made me nervous. They're complicated. I'm not sure I understand them, but Red helped me, and it was his airplane, so of course he stood nearby, and he had to be the transmitter. But on the other shoulder, standing next to me, was Dick Rutan. And if you are a historian of aviation, Dick Rutan flew the Voyager around the world in the 80s nonstop. He was the first one. Him and Gina Yeager were the first one to circumnavigate the globe nonstop in an aircraft. In an airplane, that is. And he's a very famous, very experienced full-scale turbine pilot, as you would know. He's a fighter pilot. And so I had Red Jensen on one side and Dick Rutan on the other, giving me tips of how to fly. It was the most nerve-wracking flight I've ever had, because Dick said to me, be sure that you realize turbines don't spool up fast, so they don't make a lot of power real fast. And but don't let that scare you. It'll just cause you to crash. That's all.
You have the coolest stories, Mason.
It's so great. So I flew. It was a sport, a single engine turbine of Red's, and he told me, okay, just take off like you normally would. Apply power, let it fly off the runway, and fly around just like normal. And I did that. I did what he said. I pulled up and is just starting to climb, and Red reached over and flipped the retract switch on me. And I don't know why, but when the gear went up, I got really nervous. And Dick said, "Don't let it flame out." And so that was a nervous flight. Yeah, it ended well. I didn't crash Red's airplane, and it fully addicted me to the idea of flying turbines. I haven't got my own just yet. They're a little bit pricey. But they also require some surface. My flying field's dirt, and the reason why I haven't really pursued the turbine just yet is because my home field is dirt, and someday when it's paved, we will. I'm going to go full blown turbines.
Well, you could always come visit us out here at the International Aero Modeling Center. I don't know if our campers know this, but we have over 1,000 acres out there just for flying model airplanes.
Oh. That is the place to do it.
It is the place for sure.
There's a lot of sky there.
We do. It's beautiful. The space actually moved. I moved from the studio into another workspace in our building here, and I'm looking out at the flying field right now, and I'm just like, it looks so nice out there.
Great.
Mason, while I'm online, while I'm connected, I have a very important question for you. And this is one that I think our campers are really going to get a lot out of hearing your answer to this. And I want to know, what is your advice that you have for model aviation enthusiasts we got there? All of our campers watching, everybody who's watching the stream right now. How do you think what is the best way for them to apply their hobby in a future career?
Oh, the best way. Oh, that's a great question. And I definitely have some experience doing that. I think that the best way to apply it, there's a couple different ways. And I don't know that there's any one best way, but I can give you a couple ways that I apply it and that really has helped me in my career. Just to be clear, my career, I'm a mechanical engineer and I design systems on airplanes. So I tend to be the one who gets into like the landing gear system or the flight control system, or currently I'm building the release system for Stratolaunch. It is the system that will release the payload and drop it from the airplane. So I like these mechanical type systems to go together. And what model aviation has done for me, one of the first things it did is it gave me an incredible vocabulary. I can talk with other designers and use terminology that is part of the territory, that is really aviation based. It's very specific. Let me give you an example of one of the ways we might communicate while working on the Stratolaunch airplane. We like to divide the airplane into a coordinate system, and it's huge. So we would say something like, we're going to go work on the wing rib at butt line 760. But let's make sure that we're working on the top of the wing rib at waterline 1000, but don't go any further forward than station 200. And so when we talk station, butt line, waterline, I can say these things without even thinking about it. And I've had strangers standing around me when I say these things, and they're looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" But it really did. Model aviation really does provide you, if you're into the historical value of aviation and you're building models and you're learning flying, that vocabulary is just incredible. And the second thing that it does, that model aviation does towards advancing my day-to-day career, is it gives me judgment on building, the eyeball, the lining things up. When you build a model airplane, you check the alignment of the wing to the tail, for example, or you make sure your flight controls are moving in the correct direction when you move the stick. That basic judgment was taught to me in model aviation. And once that's instilled, you don't have to review it. It is in there. And literally, you get back and look at a full-scale airplane and look at what directions the ailerons turn when you turn the wheel. Make sure you do that. That's just something you've learned in model aviation. You'll take it with you to full-scale aviation, and you'll take it with you into design. Even if you're designing things not in the aircraft itself, if you're designing things that support aviation, that still is important. And I'd say the last thing, the last point that I'd like to make is that I really love the historical knowledge that I've picked up from model aviation. I became fans of airplanes over time, and I would learn about them and research their history and then build their model. One of the most satisfying things that happened in my entire career involves plastic models. The Revell Plastic Model Corporation, everyone's put together the static plastic models to their best of their ability. I was never very good at it. They came out with the White Knight 2 and Spaceship 2 plastic model, and there are details of the design, little split lines and little panel lines in the molds of that model that I drew as the designer in the original airplane. And so seeing that model come out with my handiwork and my actual design in the detail of that plastic model is exceedingly satisfying. I don't know why, but it was a milestone for me to have an attribute in a Revell plastic model forever. It's just
That's awesome.
You finally made it, man. You finally made it.
It's plastic. Yeah.
Did you just go to the store and buy a whole bunch of them? Because that's what I would do.
Everyone in my family got them for Christmas.
They're probably like, please, no more.
Yeah.
I want something else for Christmas.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. We had a little bit of an issue. I did a lot of the landing gear design. Most of the landing gear design work on White Knight 2, and when it was new and being flown for the first time. And we had a little bit of a problem with the nose gear fork, and I had to very rapidly make a modified version of that nose gear fork over a weekend. So I got some steel plate, got my friendly welder, and we put together an ugly steel nose wheel fork for that airplane to get it out on the runway on Monday and test it. And it worked, and the idea worked really well. So I went back to the chief engineer and I asked him, can I please design a nice, new, pretty aluminum part and replace that ugly weldment on the front of the airplane? He's like, no, that thing works. We're not taking it off and trading it now. Oh, come on.
But it doesn't look good.
I was really worried about the airplane flying to Oshkosh and being seen by all the model aviators. Like I know my people. And so the boss said, no, that part works. We will not change it because it's fine. We don't care about how it looks. It is the fact that it works. So fast forward years down the road, we fly the airplane. Revell comes out with this plastic model. And the day it comes out, my friends start texting me pictures of the landing gear, and it's got that ugly fork in the landing gear. It is there. I didn't want it to be there, and it is there forever. So, yeah, be careful what you design. It can, if it works really well, maybe the ugliness just goes away.
That's awesome.
It was a good experience. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But the Revell models, they're fun. I tend to not build too many of those because they're not as much fun as they can be. I need them to be RC. So
I was going to say, when you can build something that actually flies and you can enjoy it in that way too, it adds a whole nother dimension.
It adds a whole nother dimension. I can't tell you how many night vapors I've cut the wingtip off of and joined together so I can have two night vapors in what I call the White Knight formation. And yeah, so many a night vapor has happened there. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And Mason, have you tried any other disciplines of model aviation? I know you mentioned earlier some slope soaring, but have you tried control line or free flight?
I have tried free flight. As a matter of fact, annually I organize an annual free flight event at our local at the Mojave Airport, and we call it the Mojave Experimental Fly-In. And it's it was intended to be sort of a West Coast version of Oshkosh for in the spring for the experimental full-scale builders. But among full-scale builders are always model airplaners. So I took the big open building on the airport. I asked if I could just have a free flight event, and that has turned into a major over 100 people every year show up, and we do an evening where we build free flight models, typically the AMA Delta Dart.
Mm-hmm.
We teach how to build them, and then we race them, and we have a youth category and an adult category race just to keep it fair. And it's the simplest thing. It's just longest flight duration, and it becomes a good time. I love free flight. I help my kids in Science Olympiad I'm a big Science Olympiad person. And when they started the free flight event, I got very into that. My own daughter got second in the state of California in the Science Olympiad
That's
free flight.
fantastic.
Yeah, that was so much fun to watch one of those fly for more than 2 minutes. Is just,
Woo!
I don't know why that is so exciting, but that really is.
Yay!
Yeah. I'm also into RC helicopters of all things. They are so weird that they should not fly, and the physics. So those that are good at helicopters make me want to be better, and that's why I got into helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
Watching the real pilots fly them just inspires me every single time, and I just cannot believe how good that is. So I'm into I've got a T-Rex 600 that I've been enjoying lately, and I'm also into I'm also into small. I love the ultra micros and the indoor stuff. So the only thing I really haven't got in my shop lately is a turbine. So I've flown them, but a couple times. But that's the one thing that'll be coming soon. I'm sure. I'm actually going to be growing into a new shop soon. So that'll probably offer up a little more opportunity to go into that.
Well, you'll be able to take your decals with you.
Heck yeah, and add more.
There you go.
Well, Mason, I think we're going to have to wrap it up around here. Are there any last words of wisdom you want to share with our viewers today?
Yeah, actually, I thought about this. I'd like to sort of leave with a little mantra that we have in the full-scale experimental aircraft building business. I learned this at Scaled Composites, and I continue it on at Stratolaunch, and a lot of us do. It's something that was taught to me, and that is that we all do the same thing. We design, we build, and we test, or we fly. And in that process, that is sort of embodies model aviation as much as it can. It keeps it really does describe the entire process of aviating, especially with models. But what I would like to leave the audience with is that you should really try to put yourself in the mindset of enjoying the failures. I understand that crashing an airplane is not the best thing in the world to enjoy, but sometimes it is. And you should allow yourself to enjoy those failures as much as possible and celebrate them. I crashed an EDF model just a few weeks ago. It was my beloved Avanti S EDF. I loved that airplane, and I did the silliest flight maneuver. But guess what? I learned about it, and in the end, we celebrated with a few pictures in the RC club. So my parting message to you is to celebrate the failures and learn from them, and understand that they're there to teach.
That is
That's
fantastic,
awesome,
Mason. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here and being a part of AMA Junior Camp. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in today on Monday, July 6, 2020. This has been a live stream from the Academy of Model Aeronautics with Mason Hutchison, myself, Claire, and my friend Kyle. We'll see you guys all tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for project number 2, and tomorrow afternoon for another special guest. Thanks again, and keep on flying. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.